Welcome to NAV Master's video series on Dynamics NAV. In this video, we will cover an overview of Dynamics NAV's other financial areas, including cash flow forecasting, payment journals, cash receipts, intercompany transactions, check, wire, and ACH payments, aged accounts payable, reconciling AP to GL, and 1099 forms. I want to talk a little bit about cash flows, and this is just a very brief introduction to it, but we can do an in-depth analysis on this if this is something that you're interested. So when I go into cash flow, I can create a cash flow forecast here, and I have one that I've already created, and I can edit this. And if we take a look at it, it has a name, and you can see that we have virtually nothing out here at the moment. And it has budgeting information, and I've checked this box that says show in chart on roll center. So this, whatever I generate here, can be used on that roll center. So from my cash flow forecast that I have here, I can go up and click this little thing that says cash flow worksheet. And this opens up a worksheet for me and then lets me do the things that are going to populate this forecast. I can suggest worksheet lines, and when I do this, I can tell it what kind of funds I want to analyze here. I want to bring in all my liquid funds, my receivables, my sales orders, service orders if I have them, fixed asset disposals, cash flow manual revenue, payables, purchase orders, all of these various things that I want. So I've checked 5 of these categories that I want to bring in here, and I'm just going to say OK to this, and this populates this worksheet for me with all of the information from my general ledger about my payables, my receivables, all of the items that I have out here. When I'm done, I can simply pick this item that says register, and it registers these worksheet lines for me. And when I go back to my worksheet now, I have actually populated this worksheet with all of the information that we've just posted. So if I just simply open this back up again, now you can see that my liquid funds, receivables, sales orders, all of the information that we wanted to take a look at for that we've populated for this is now available in my cash flow analysis area. From my cash flow sheet here, if I click on cash flow available by period, I can actually see how my cash flow is going to work out over the next few months. So I can look at January, February, March, receivables, sales orders, service orders, fixed assets, all of the purchase orders and payables, all of the things that I have selected here. I see my net activities based upon the entries that we have populated in here for these periods. And so this gives me a nice overview of what I can expect in terms of cash flow. The next area that I'd like to demonstrate for you is the payment journal. So if I go to Departments, Payables, and the payment journal here, we get invoices in from our vendors, we receive merchandise, and the payment journal is the place in which we satisfy our debts and pay our invoices. It's the easiest place to do this from, and NAV has a very nice feature. It's called Suggest Vendor Payments here. So if I open this up, I can put in a last date that I've ran this. I ran it already once today. Find payment discounts. So I can, if I want to take discounts, I can do that. You can set up priorities on vendors, and I could prioritize my vendors if I don't have enough money to satisfy all of my current outstanding payables. I can put in the posting date that I want to actually appear on my transactions out here, and everything in this demo database is done back in 2017. I have a starting document or check number. I can set up my payment type. So how do I want to pay this? I'm going to use a type of payment of bank account, and this is the bank that I'm going to be paying out of, the Euro Bank. and I'm going to do a run of computer checks. So when I do that, I can come down here and select a payment method code, and this could be check, it could be bank, it could be transfer, could be any of these things I want. I'm going to do checks. So all these are all the vendors that I have to be set up by to be paid with checks, and I just click OK. It says you have created suggested vendor payment lines for all currencies. I click OK, and this will bring in all of my vendor payments that are currently due and that are set up with a payment type of check. So these all come into my register. I can review them, and if there are some I don't want to pay, so for example, I have two different vendors here. I have vendor 10,000 and I have vendor 20,000. Let's just assume for some reason I don't want to pay this vendor. I can just highlight these rows, click this and delete it. And now I'm only going to be paying a single vendor here for all of their open invoices. So there's a couple of things that I can do to kind of make myself feel better the first time I do this. I can print a test report here. And what this does is it actually shows me each of the lines that it's going to print, the amount that it's printing, the total that I'm paying out, 165,989 in USD. And it's giving me warnings here that printed check must be yes before I can actually post these transactions. So because these are set up with a payment type of computer check, the payment type here is computer check. I have to print them first, and there's a little button up here that actually goes out and lets me print the check. I can do a preview of the check if I wish. It tells me it's being paid by Kronos USA with the address for $165,989. Gives me the same amount over here. And so in order to complete the transaction, I can either print the checks as a separate unit, or I can post and print the checks. I always suggest that people really print the checks in case the printer jams or something happens of that type. I get all my checks printed and then I simply do a post. For accounts payable and running checks, I do not like post and print. I've seen this cause issues before. So simply print the checks and then post them. It clears everything out of the journal and your payment to this vendor is complete. Another illustration that I would like to show you in this payment journal area is that we can do this same thing again, only this time instead of paying by check, we're going to choose electronic payment. So instead of computer check, I've selected electronic payment. And down here in the payment method area, instead of picking check, I've picked bank. And so any vendor that has a payment method code set up, a bank, and has an invoice that is due to be paid as of today, this will pick them up. So all I have to do now is click OK. It tells me that I brought these in. It's brought in this one vendor, and it is a bank payment type of electronic payment. So this is going to be a wire transfer or an ACH payment. One of the things that's interesting about this is that if I slide across to the right-hand side here, I see the recipient bank account. So this is a code for this vendor's bank account. And if I drill into the vendor and I pick advanced and I edit this vendor, what I'll find is that if I navigate on the vendor card, I can pick bank accounts. And this vendor has 3 bank accounts set up. And if I edit this, what I see is that for the vendor bank account here, I have this UTR set up. This is the bank. This is its bank account number, its branch number. If I go down below down here, I see the bank account number set up here. I see an IBAN number set up for doing wire transfers. So I have all of the information has to be set up on this particular, on the vendor bank card in order to do wire transfers and ACH payments. And once I have this all set up and in place, again, I could run a test report if I wanted to. The difference here is that in order to process this, I'm going to export the file first of all. I'm going to transmit it to the bank. and then I'm going to post this when I'm done. So I have this export, transmit, and then again back to the posting area. When I get done doing this, I can send the remittance either electronically, I can email it, I can print them and send them out. Typically people will send these via email. But once I've exported and transmitted the file, sent out the remittance advice, this process then is really finished. The next thing I'd like to take a look at is my aged accounts payable and receivable reports here. And if you recall earlier on, I already had ran a aged accounts receivable report. I automated this so it popped up every day in my inbox, and I could review accounts receivable each day. And so when I look at this, I see what's current, 30, 60, 90 days, and so on and so forth. And I can review all of the information about my customers here by running this aged accounts receivable report. One of the other things that I can do, and I would suggest that we would put this into this report inbox also, is that in the payables area, I have an aged accounts payable. So I can run this. I have a posting an age as of date that I can run here. Length of the aging period. So I want to see this 30, 60, 90 days. Print the detail. If I uncheck this box, all I get is summary information, but check the detail so I get it here. And when I preview this, this will print out on the page for me here. And again, current 30, 60, 90 days. And this is really nice. My payables are, they're spot on. I've got a little bit that's in the 30 to the up to 30 day column. Nothing in 31 to 60, and my life is really good. So if I run this again and I take this posting date and I push this out to 2/26 and I preview this again, as you can see now, I'm starting to move these numbers are now beginning to move out into the 31 to 60 day column because it's aging at every 30 days for me. And it's doing it based upon that date that I've set for it out there. And the last thing I would like to do is to, if I were going to be managing an area that included accounts payables, what I would probably do is that I would pick this print button and I would schedule this. And again, this lets me schedule this with a starting date and time. So I can put in my date and time as I did before. And I can put in an end date if I want to do this for a month. I can put an end date in, and after that end date is exceeded, these reports will no longer appear in my report inbox. And so I would schedule it so that it actually appeared down here in my inbox for me every day. And when I come in the morning, I have my aged accounts payable, I have my aged accounts receivable. I can take a look at it quickly and see if I have any issues. I want to look at a few other areas in this financial management piece with the general ledger and so on and so forth. I want to look at accounts receivable. Now we've already looked at the age accounts receivable report, but I want to run this for a specific customer, this one, because I just received a check from this customer to pay some of their invoices. So I want to take a look at their overall aging here. And we're going to be paying this $1,600 invoice, the $458 and the $2,400. So their current balance out here right now is $71,145.23. And so I just wanted to review that quite quickly. What we're going to do is go to a cash receipts journal, and I'm going to enter in a new journal here. It's going to be a payment, and this is going to be from a customer, and the account number is going to be 2000, and that's my customer. And they're going to be paying us, and I enter this in as a negative amount because we're going to be reducing the accounts receivable. So I'm entering in the amount of this check, and on the check, I'm going to be depositing this into a bank account, and the bank is going to be the Giro Bank. So I've entered this in, and on their check stub, they're telling me what invoices they're paying. So I simply go up to Apply Entries, and I look, and the first one that they want to pay is this $1,600 invoice, and then they want to pay the next one. and then they want to pay the next one. And so they're paying these invoices. And if you look down here, it says the applied amount and the amount available. If I go up to this and I delete this, for example, and tab off this, now I've only applied 2127 out of the 4,500, which means I still have a remaining amount to apply here. So I'm going to go in and apply this, and now look, the balance is 0. Applied and available all match. So we've applied this to the invoices that we want to pay. I'm going to go up to the top of this, and I'm going to run a test report just because I want to show you how this works. And the test report basically says it's going to reduce my receivables up here by the 4556. It's going to increase my cash balance in the bank, so that's going to go up. So everything actually looks good here. So I'm finished applying this money. I'm going to go up. I can either post and print, or I can simply post these transactions. And the journal lines are successfully posted. Everything should have applied to my customer now. So if I go back out and I run my aged accounts receivable for this customer again, now their balance is reduced down to $66,588. So those invoices that we were showing before have now all been paid. The next area I'd like to review is intercompany transactions. So if we go to the general ledger area, we have intercompany transactions that we can do here, and I'm sure that you're all aware of the various inbox transaction that we have and the outbox transaction, because people that are interested in using this functionality have typically been doing this for a while. And there are two primary ways that transactions, actually three primary ways that transactions get out here. One is from intercompany journals. So I can go to the intercompany journal here, and for example, I could make a payment, and the payment could be from an intercompany partner, and I can pick their account number. Here I'm going to use Cronus USA. I'm going to make a payment of, for example, maybe $750 here. And the account number that I'm going to take this to is 65100, cleaning supplies, for example. The IC partner's number is exactly the same because we have them matched here. And this is going to be administrative expense. And then I could have a second item here, and if I touch the F8 key, it just copies this down. Maybe this is for $1,000, and this could be to 65,800, for example, postage, and 65,800 because my partner's account is the same. And this would be administrative expense as well. So when we're doing these, oftentimes this is really to allocate expenses out to various departments, to intercompany transactions, and so on and so forth. So this allows us to set these intercompany transactions up and then post them. Dynamics NAV has a recurring general journal entry program where you can set up recurring journals. However, this intercompany general journal does not. So one of the things that you can do with this that's extremely helpful is that when you create a journal in here with a bunch of allocations that you want to have, if you copy these and save them to an Excel document, this layout happens to be exactly the same as the layout that I have up on the general ledger screen. And then what I can do with these as I've saved them is I can go out and make modifications to this and for this month's allocation, and just adjust the dollar amounts that are here. And what I can do then is I can just copy these, and I can go back to my journal here, and I can paste rows, and it'll paste it directly into my journal for me so that I don't have to retype these each time. So I can change the date to the next month in my Excel document. I can readjust the dollar amounts here, paste it in, and then just simply post it to get these intercompany transactions out to where they need to go. Another area where I can do intercompany transactions from are things, for example, like purchase orders. So I could create a purchase order. I'm going to just create a new purchase order here. I'm going to make this to vendor 2000. And I'm going to give it a vendor's invoice number here of NBD-002. And I can create transactions here of the type general ledger. I can't do items, but I can definitely do type of general ledger. And I can pick a general ledger account, for example, cleaning here. I can pick my IC partner code that I'm going to do this for. We're going to do Kronos US. And my partner's account is the same as ours because it's synchronized, and that makes our life much easier when we do things that way. It's a quantity of 1, and it's $1,000. So I've actually now created a transaction here that is an intercompany transaction that I can process, and then it will appear in my in and out box in order to be processed. So once I have everything filled out here that I need, what I need to do with this is just to release this purchase order. And once the purchase order is released, then I can post and print, or I can simply just post it. So I'm going to receive and invoice this, and this transaction is now complete. So I can exit out of the purchasing area, and I can go back to my general ledger. And if I go down to my outbox, here is my transaction that I just created a moment ago. And I can navigate to this and see the details. Here's my $1,000 to 6501 that I just transacted here. So now I can actually now set my line actions here. So send to my IC partner, return to the inbox. If I don't like it, cancel it, take no action at all. So I'd mark this to send to my IC partner. When after I do that, I complete the line action, and it transmits it over to the other company for me. Two other areas that I'd like to cover in this section. If we go to the departments again, and let's go into Payables. So one of the things that Dynamics NAV lets you do, which is extremely nice, is that it tracks 1099 miscellaneous vendors. So miscellaneous or dividends or interest vendors out here. So you can mark a vendor to track their purchases. And at year end, you can simply go into here and you can print this report. Unfortunately, I checked this and there's really nothing here. I can print a test report. And basically what this does is that it will print out the 1099 information for them on the appropriate form to send them at year end for their tax return. Sorry that there wasn't anybody in the demo database that actually had a miscellaneous tax form to print, but there was nothing here to do it with. The second thing that I wanted to show you over here is that there's a, at month end, there's always an issue, there's often an issue with being able to reconcile the accounts payable to the general ledger. And so the primary issue that happens here is that we have a receive not invoiced. So in order to do that very easily, you can pick this reconcile AP to GL. And when you preview this, what this really comes up with is it shows you the inventory items that are receive not invoiced and the dollar amounts for these. So you can either go back into these purchase orders and invoice them to complete the transaction, or you can make an accrual entry for this and then reverse it first of the month to wait for them to actually be invoiced. But this report is really invaluable to be able to reconcile your AP to GL.